All right, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to talk and you're going to listen. I'm making a video about it's a walkthrough of my job, of of how the process moves forward from beginning to end. I went out and shot a bunch of video and pieced it all together and in the order that I want to do it in. So we're going to go ahead and start from front to back. Right now, what I'm doing is walking outside to the where the silos are. The silos, well, right now, let's start here. This is the train tracks, and we have rail cars. We have a train that comes, I don't know how often it comes. I want to say every night, but it brings these rail cars in. Now, I've already taken too long to say what I needed to say, but those rail cars, if I back up for just a second, they keep the polymer. They bring in the polymer that we have, that we use to make everything that we make. And you'll see the polymer in a minute. But these rail cars come in, they drop them off, and they hook them up to these silos right here. Well, there's a little bit more of a process, and I'll show you that too. But they hook them up to these silos. They pump them into these silos, and then we distribute it out to the lines. But this is the pump house right here. All these things right here, and you'll see them. I'll show you a little bit more. But these are pumps that once the polymer is in the silos, these pumps pump that polymer out from the silos to whichever machine that the pump is assigned to. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and walk through here. These are just filters. These big canisters are just filters, and I'm focusing on that for whatever reason. That right there is the actual pump motor. There's belts attached to this, which is the actual pump. This is a valve. It's controlled by air and a sensor that there's a lot of moving parts, but ultimately it's controlled by this little photo eye or a sensor that tells it when it's ready for more, and it opens. This valve will open and let air allow suction. And this pump is usually it's running most of the time, but it'll take a little break every now and then. I had to change one of those suckers out not long ago. But anyway, this just creates suction through something you'll see in a few minutes, and I'll get back to this. I'll remind you of where it came from when we get to that point. But we have plenty of those, and that's the problem with pausing this crap. Oh, okay, I need to pause it right there. Now this right here, what you just saw, same situation. It's a main pump that this is what provides suction to pump the polymer from the rail cars into the silos. There's two of these. There's this room, and then we're going to walk through into another room, which is it's going to be the same setup, but there's two of these. We'll go ahead and get through this. This is different than anything I've done before, because I had to go out and record all the stuff, and then I'm trying to narrate as we go through it. Okay, now we're getting ready to go up on the silos. These things are pretty tall. I don't know, I want to say 60 feet, maybe more. I'm not sure. 60 feet, 80 feet, maybe something. I don't know. I'm not sure. But anyway, these things house the polymer. And I'll go inside of one of them later on the bottom end, and I'm getting ready to climb up that ladder right there to show you what's on top. Now this right here, this trash can with all this crap in, that's polymer. If you're wondering what polymer is, this is what it is. It looks just like sleet or something. It's just little white balls. I'll pick it up. It's really not that sticky, but it's been raining on it all night long. This is some stuff that got spilled, and they picked it up with the shop vac and just dumped it in that trash can. But that's what it looks like. It's just little white balls. There's some of it right there. So these pipes right here, I'm not going to pretend that I know exactly how this works, but all these pipes lead somewhere. You hook this stuff up depending on what kind of polymer you're pumping out, because there's different types of polymer. There's different melts, and you pump the stuff wherever it's supposed to go. That's not my department. I'm trying to give you some idea how it works, but that's not my department. But there's 12 of these silos right here, these big jokers, and each one of them, well, several of them have like the same kind of polymer, and then there's, you might have 4 that have the same kind, and there might be 1 or 2 others that have some different kind, and then 6 others that there's, again, that's not my department, but each one of them they're housing units for the polymer. Okay, so let's just move on. But these big pipes right here, that's a cap. You take that off, you flip that thing up, and there's another one on the other side. You flip that off, and then you hook one of those hoses up to it, and you pump it from the rail cars, or that might be coming from the rail cars. I'm not sure. I believe that's coming from the there's like a middle line. There's those metal hoses that you hook to it, but there's like a middle line in between those 2 rail cars, those 2 train cars that we saw out there. There's this one, and then beside that one there's another one, and in between that, and I didn't get any video of it, but in between that there's 2 big pipes running through there, and you hook them up to that. Or in this case, I'll show you in a minute. I think I got a video of it, a shot of it. But you can just hook the pipe like straight up to that, and go to whatever you need. But that's how you fill these things up. And these things are kind of like warehouses silos. It speaks for itself. But those keep all the polymer that we have. The train the train brings them in, and we got guys who just go and refill them. So here we are at the top now, looking down. It's slicker. It's slippery up there right now because it's raining. These pipes here, they all go to something. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these pipes. I've already spent too much time on it. You get the gist of it. Right here is the catwalk that goes to the next silo, and sometimes we have to climb up here and work on these things. But they go all the way around and then all the way back. There's 12 of them. There's at the end, once you get down to number 6, then there's a catwalk that goes over to number 7, and you can walk all the way back over here to number 12. But we have these things up here. I'll get to it in a minute. I'm showing off, I guess. I don't know what I'm doing. So this right here, this thing, inside of this thing, there's a little motor and a switch and a relay and a series of pulleys with a small wire wrapped around it. And that wire goes down into that silo. On the bottom of that wire is like a little plumb bob. It's a weight, more or less. So let's say these silos are, and we'll say they're 60 feet. They might be more, they might be less, I don't know. But let's say they're 60 feet tall. Okay? They fill up, you fill them up so much. And inside of this thing, and I'll take that lid off here in just a second so you'll see it. I just want to explain it first. But there's a button that you push on the inside, and I think that's the next video. That's the next segment. But you push this button, and it makes this little plumb bob. It turns this motor on and makes it release this little plumb bob, and it just goes down into the silo. And once it gets down in there and it hits something, then it starts coming back up. And there's a counter on that device that you'll see in a minute. And that lets you know how many feet down that little plumb bob goes. And when it hits, when it gets any kind of resistance, there's another little switch that makes connection up here, and then it'll tell it to come back up. So it starts coming back up. And however many feet it goes down, let's say the silo's 60 feet. If it goes down 20 feet, then you know you still have 40 feet of polymer inside that thing. And just to put it into perspective, one of these silos, if one of these silos is hooked up to, is running at max all day long, you might, for one shift, you might use up 2 to 2.5 feet of polymer per shift. That's a 12-hour shift. If I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong, it might be a day per day, but I think it's per shift, about 2.5 feet. So that's how that works. But I'll take this lid off right here and just show you. That's the motor. There's your little limit switches and all. Over here, for whatever, that's the pulley and the wire. And I'll show you it. You'll clearly see right there where it goes down in there. For some reason, I stayed on this for a while because I didn't think I was getting a good shot of it. But we'll get past that together and move on to the next thing. Thank God that's over with. Alright, so I think I'm getting ready to climb back down now. And then I'll go in there, and I think the next shot should be of that. There it is. That's that switch. Now what happens here is out of 12 silos, you flip this one to whichever silo you want to check. And I think I'm going to 1, which is the one I was just on. And right here, you reset that, then you go down here and hit the start button. That light will come on when it's moving. And I did have to pick the one that was really low, so it's going to take forever for it to go down. I think it goes down 33 feet or something like that. Once it gets down to like 40 feet, that thing's about empty. So we'll just bear with me for a minute. Huh, 38 feet, okay. So what happens is that it stopped at 38 feet, but you notice that light's still on because that thing still has to come back up. So once it comes back up, that light will go off. I don't think I was stuck on it that long because I figured I'd just explain it and we'll move on to the next thing. And here we are, and we're outside. I'm getting ready to go into one of those silos, but after that, I'm going to show you where those pipes go into the building. I think I go into this one. And we had to lock those doors. I paused it because it took me a minute to get my key out because we had to start locking them because people were going in there and pissing. And it smelled like piss every time you had to go in there and work on something. So we started, I think a few years ago, they got in there and cleaned them out and just put locks on the doors and gave us keys. Now, right here, I'll back up for just a second because right here you see these 4 pipes. There's 2 big pipes on the bottom, 2 small pipes on the top. Each silo has 4 pipes coming out of it. I didn't get a shot of it, but on the other side of this thing where the pipes come out, there's little screens, like filter screens that you can adjust like dampers. And sometimes you have to go adjust those if the suction's not good. Or sometimes you just have to go clean them off because they get dirty. This really isn't something we have to do a hell of a lot, but I'm just giving you a good look at what it looks like, I guess. But here, this thing here is it. Sometimes every now and then you'll get something will happen, such as one of those plumb bobs falls off. What I was just telling you about. And they'll come down and get stuck in here. Or they potentially could get stuck in here. If we realize that the thing's not working and it's not getting a reading, then there's times you have to come out here and just you have to let it run down so far until you think it's about empty, and then you come out here and you just start emptying this stuff out, and then you take the door off of here. You can close this thing if you need to. That's like a slide that you can cut off flow so it won't all pour out on you. Here's a thing that you can put a bag under if you do want to pour a lot of it out. But anyway, that's just an access panel pretty much. If you were to get down low enough to where if that thing fell off or if there was something inside of there and you needed to get it out, it would come out right here. You could take this access door off and get it out. All right. I'm sure I'm having quite a conversation with myself while I'm out there, so again, you'll have to bear with me. I'm trying to narrate this thing, and it's new to me. I'll lock that door so we don't get any urinators in there. I think, okay, that's just some of the pipes running back. I think the next one we go to is where it shows them going into the wall. That's it right there. Now this is where all these pipes go into the plant. They go into the outside wall of the plant, and then we're going to go inside and you'll see where they come out. I don't know what I was doing right there. I remember thinking I wanted to edit that out, but I didn't. So here we are inside. This is where they come out. Now what they do is come out of these hoses, and those pumps that I showed you earlier in the pump house, that's where they're getting the suction from. Those pipes ultimately go back. There's like a complete circle. I won't go into all of that, but they create suction from these pipes right here. And then you hook a hose up to the polymer ports, and it sucks them through these hoses into whatever machine they need to go into. See that one right there wasn't doing very good. Jumping up and down. So staple 7. I focused on this one because that's the machine that I'm going to go to later to show you. The one. I don't know why I was trying to be dramatic. I guess I don't know. So anyway, it goes up these pipes throughout the plant. It goes all over the place. Each one of them have a pipe going to it. Now, I switched directions here, and I'll get back to the other spot in a minute, to the other thing in a minute, but these are the two big air tanks. I'm going to the air pressure side of it. These are the two big air tanks that we have outside of the compressor room, the main compressor room. And right there, I just happened to hear them call over the intercom that the air pressure was low. We wanted around 120. It was around 108. So I'm going to go in here, and I actually do find one that's turned off, and it wasn't put on auto. So if it were to go down, it wouldn't turn back on automatically. And I don't know if that was something that somebody meant to do or what. That's an air compressor right there. We got 3 big ones in here. Come on. That's one, and that's the other. So this one is turned on, but it's not running, and it's not set on auto. If it's set on auto, if it stops for some reason, then it'll, like if there's plenty of air pressure in the plant and it's just sitting there running for nothing, it'll stop. But if it's not put on auto, then it won't automatically start back up when it's needed. So I turned it on auto, and then went and checked the other two, and they were good. And I think the next one is of the smaller air compressors we have. I think this is really short, but we have some smaller air compressors. No. Okay, what this is we have a chiller room, and sometimes when one of those air compressors trips out or cuts off, it's because it's not getting cooled. It's not getting any cooling air to keep it from overheating. And when that happens, you want to come and check these chiller drives to see if one of them's tripped out, if there's a problem there. And you can't see it because I'm moving too fast, but I could see that none of them were tripped out. That's the smaller air compressor room. Nothing special, just a smaller version of the other one. All of that stuff was running. That's the chiller. I don't get too deep into this. That's the on the other side of that. There's this is a big water tank down here, and it just cycles water through and cools things down in those for those air compressors. They're all water cooled. Okay, this is the plate room. Now, this is not going to make much sense to you right now. I'm just showing you this because it's not very sexy. I just wanted to get it out of the way so I could say that here it is. It'll make more sense later. But this right here is called die cleaning, or AKA the plate room. Die cleaning, we have these plates that go on the heads, which again will make more sense here shortly. But we have these things on one side, on the filament side, they're called packs, and they're different. They look like this. And on the staple side, they're called heads, and they have plates. And well, they're all called heads, but on the staple side, the things you put on them are called plates. These plates and these packs all have tiny little holes, hundreds sometimes of tiny little holes. Sometimes I think in some cases there are thousands of them. I might be wrong. Maybe less than 2,000. Maybe not thousands, but more than 1,000. So I think if you're looking at a plate like this, and I might be wrong. Again, this is not my department, but I want to say there's around 700 or 800 little holes. Might be a lot more than that. I don't know. In that thing, and I'll just. But these things have to be burned out every now and then. Every now and then you have to change plates because they get gunked up. Now there's a pack. These things have to be put together. That's a filter. That's the top end of that pack. That polymer goes down inside here, and there's sand underneath that screen. And then it goes through that sand, kind of, I guess it catches anything. Or I don't know what the sand's for, to be honest. I've never put too much thought or interest into how the plates and the packs work. I'm not that committed, but anyway, these are the packs, and you'll see the packs in action shortly. And then I must have been talking to myself right much. That's the bottom end of the pack. Now what you right there right there, what I've got my hand on, if you can see it, there's a bunch of holes, and I think that's one of the ones with fewer holes in it. But like that right there is a hole, that's a hole, that's a hole, that's a hole. Little tiny holes, and that's what the polymer comes out of. But these things have to be burnt out, but taken apart. There's several pieces that connect together, but they have to be taken apart and burnt out to clean them out every now and then. And we're getting ready to move into the other room where you clean them out. And it's just two big burners, two big ovens. I was trying to find something to show y'all, but I just couldn't. I was trying to find a plate with the holes in it to show y'all, but I couldn't find one that wasn't wrapped up. And I don't want to unwrap it because I don't want to hear any crap. So here's the burners. You put the stuff in that big cage right there, and you take this lid off and you lower it down into there, and it just burns all the crap off of it. You see that's 869 degrees Fahrenheit, 870. There's 2 of them in there. Chain hoist. For some reason I thought you'd enjoy seeing me push a button and lifting this chain hoist up, so I did that, or lowering it. So we'll move on here in a second. I was going to lift that up, and then I realized how hot it was, so I didn't do it. They got a big handle, a big hook up there that they pick it up with. Now these things, after they burn, they have to stick them in this series of cleaners. One is some, I don't know, it might be some kind of acid, and another one is water, and then another one is some kind of coating that they put on it, and there's a little like microwaves or something that goes through there. I can't remember what it's called, but we have to work on it from time to time. But that's one that was in there. I opened it up and put it back in there. I didn't open the rest because Bobby wasn't in there, the guy who runs that on this shift, and he runs a little hot, so I didn't want him to walk in and see me screwing around with his stuff. So I got out of there. All right, now, as I showed you earlier, staple 7, that's the line that I'm going to take you to once we go to that side. But before we do that, we're going to go to the filament side, and the machine that we're going to go to is T17, which you see right here. So I'm just showing you the pipe. It's a smaller pipe. You got a bigger pipe that goes to the staple lines and a smaller pipe. You see those, like the small hose here and the big hose here. The bigger hoses go to the staple lines, the smaller hoses go to the filament lines. So we're going to go over next and look at T17, and that was just an example of how the polymer flows through. Okay, now I'm going up the steps on to the top level of T17. What we're coming to here is called a pack oven, and those packs that I just showed you in there, when they need to change packs, when they know they're going to need to change packs, they go get some packs out of the plate room, and they bring them and put them in this pack oven and heat them up to 500 degrees. They let them sit in there for several hours, and then when it's time to change packs, they're already heated and ready to go because they need to be heated up when they put them in. I'm just showing you that that's an oven. There's the packs partially. Well, those are put together. They look different on different machines, but the big cylindrical ones, I didn't go to that machine and film anything. These are what the packs look like for this machine. Okay. Now we're going to see the where it's coming out of the packs right here. That's those tiny little holes I was telling you about. Okay. It's coming out of the packs right there. We'll get a better look at that here in a second. But what happens is these pipes up here that's where the polymer is flowing from all those hoses from the silos into the machines via the pump house. The pumps providing suction. Well, these have their own pumps. I don't think anything in the pump house is being used for the filament side, but it does for the other side. They are for the other side. So you're getting polymer coming through those. Well, there's suction coming from these pipes. These have their separate pumps which are inside the plant. The polymer comes in through here. Anyway, the polymer comes in through here. There's a little flap. When it gets full, it closes up. And anyway, when it fills up, this is called the throat. That's the polymer right there coming down into the throat, going into the actual extruder. I'll get to the extruder in a second. This is called pigment. this is called stabilizer. I'm not going to spend any time on that, but it's not worth it. But this is called pigment, which gives it the color. The yarn we make, or the fiber we make, it gets its color from the pigment. You have polymer mixed with pigment to give it the color. I'll tell you more on pigment in a little bit. This is called a dosing unit controller. That's called the dosing unit, what I just showed you. This is the controller which tells the stabilizer and the pigment motors how fast to run, so that they can so they can help keep the color on shade, or keep the color on shade. They each have like a different process and a setup that they have to put into it for whatever shade of color they want, along with whatever color pigment. So anyway, this is where you enter the recipe to do that. Okay, this is the actual extruder. The extruder, inside of here, it's fed down through the throat. Inside of here you have what's called a screw, which is like, it resembles a long drill bit, an enormous drill bit. And it just turns and it melts that polymer and that pigment by friction. It's kept hot by a series of heaters that are wrapped around the barrel. But it melts the stuff by friction. And once it gets to the end, it's about 240, 250, 260 degrees on up through here. Once it gets up to the head, let's stop right there. This is the meter pump. It pushes all that melted plastic, for lack of a better term, all the way through here, and then you get to a meter pump. This meter pump, it's a pump. I mean, but it has it just meters out the polymer to the heads. So it pushes it through here. This kind of regulates how much goes out due to whatever speed you set it up to, and there it is turning. That's just the shaft turning. I couldn't, without taking that cage off, I couldn't give you a good look at the meter pump. But anyway, then it pushes it out through the packs, and that stuff's hot. If I were to stick my arm under there, and it got on me, it would burn severely. But not only would it burn severely, you can't wipe it off. So you might as well just sit there and let it burn until it hardens up, and then peel it off. Because if you try to wipe it off, you're just going to smear it and burn yourself even worse. And it does happen. So moving on to the next video, that's where we just were up there. This is where it comes out. They have to get all these things. They have to get all these things and like each one of those 4 heads, those 4 packs you saw up there, they have to get all the strands coming out of there and put them into one line. All the strands coming out of the second one and put them into one line, and vice versa. I mean, and so on. What they're going through right now, right here, is called spin finish. Spin finish is, I'm going to tell you, spin finish is a nightmare. But apparently it adds to the texture and the color or something. It's something that's vital. I'm not a process guru, but apparently it's something that's vital to the color and the quality of the material. If you don't have spin finish, I know one thing. If the spin finish runs out, that stuff will it'll start wrapping up on the rollers, and it's just like rubbing a balloon against your hair. It's like it's just got a lot of static or something. But anyway, it goes through that spin finish. That's got to have a certain setup, and you got to change the spin finish pumps out. You got to work on the spin finish quite a bit, actually. And I'll get more into the spin finish after that. But anyway, those 4 strands, they come down. They put them around these series of rollers. They have to wrap them around them several times. There's one. There's the next set. And it goes down to that set. Have to work on those rollers a whole lot too. then up here around that roller and down to the winder where it puts it on 4 spools of yarn. Turns it into 4 spools of yarn. Okay. This is the aspirator hose. I've told you about those if you're one of the people who I've talked to about it. So a couple people might watch this video, and I bet you if 2 people watch this video, one of them it's going to be shoved down their throat, the other one will be interested. But anyway, this is the aspirator hose. Now what this hose is for, I didn't quite get that though. I didn't feel like reaching down and getting that bottom lock. I didn't know there was a bottom lock. But what this hose is for is back here back here when that stuff is coming out. Let me get back up here. When that stuff is coming out of the heads up there, out of the packs, you have to grab a hold of it with something so you can wrap it around. And it's coming out, so there has to be some suction on it. So you have these aspirator hoses, and that red hose is air blowing out, and then you have the actual aspirator gun for lack of a better term, and it's got a bunch of guts in it, and then it sucks. It blows out through one end and sucks in through the other. So you get suction at this tip right here. Okay, I'll show you. Okay, so that sucks in, and that's how you keep control of the yarn as it's coming down, so you can wrap it around those rollers. So anyway, a lot of times these hoses get wore out. They get hot because that stuff's hot coming out of there, and they'll get holes in them. They'll get stopped up, so you got to go change those hoses out. And those hoses also are supposed to be cut off or hanging up on those hangers that it was hanging on when I first picked it up. Those hangers have cutoff valves on them. Excuse me. So when you hang it up on that, it'll cut the airflow off. But some people will leave them off of the hangers. Some of the machines don't even have hangers, and they'll just leave them turned on. And when that happens, the air pressure will drop. And then we got this alarm that goes off that sounds like all the worst things in the world combined into one noise. But anyway, that's what an aspirator hose is. They're vital. You go over here. This is just where you set it up. I didn't spend too much time on this. That's just where you punch in the settings for the rollers and spin finish and all of that stuff. Now, I think I'm going to go to the spin finish next and just show you how that works, because that stuff can be a nightmare too. There's the spin finish tote. Now that top tote right there, they replace that one. They'll mix up a new batch of spin finish and replace that one with a new one, and then this one just stays put unless this tote ever needs to be changed. But then they just fill this one up with that one, and then that one has 2 pumps connected to it. Right there they are. There's one pump. The other pump's over there, looks just like it. And you have an outlet and an inlet. You don't have an inlet here. Well, you do, but it just has nothing to do with what I'm talking about right now. But this is the outlet. If one of these pumps goes bad, you can just switch the valves around and turn the other pump on to give you time to replace that one. So it pumps out of here. It pumps the spin finish out of here to the machines, and there's a continuous flow. It has a return hose, which I'm getting to right now. I'm going on out there myself thinking that anyway, here's a return hose. That's showing it going up, and then a return hose that comes back, and whatever's not used, it pumps it back into that tote right there. I don't know why that has a valve on it. None of the others do. But anyway, that's how that works. Now those hoses go up into some pipes. The pipes go through the ceiling, They go all over the place, and sometimes they spring a leak, and we're going to get to that right now. Right down here is a lot of the times where you'll have your problem. This will be the initial problem. They'll spring a leak here, well, because that spin finish, I mean, it could probably erase a driveway grease stain. It's some strong stuff. It's supposed to be just soap and water, but by God, it's not soap and water. But it rots these hoses out where these fittings are. It rots those hoses out, and it'll start leaking a little bit. Now you might get a drip. It'll keep on dripping and dripping and dripping, and eventually somebody's going to say something about it because the stuff is slick. You don't want to walk on it. I mean, I'm not anal about safety. I do appreciate safety standards and all of that, but I'll tell you, this stuff is not safe to walk on. So you don't want to have a big puddle of spin finish somewhere and somebody walk through it, because they'll fall. They will fall. They'll bust their butt. So anyway, you want to get that fixed. But the thing is, this is not hard to fix. When it's dripping out of here, it's real easy to fix. It takes 5 minutes. But after you do that, you have to prime it. Just bear with me. After you have to cut that pump off, and you have to take the hose loose, and all the spin finish is going to drain out back into the tote or a little bit out on the floor once you take that hose loose in order to fix it. Now, when you turn it back on, you have to prime it, because you're not just going to turn the pump back on and all that spin finish just start flowing through there like mad. You got to run some water through there. You got to get the pressure going and then turn the spin finish back on. So that's why this water hose is attached to the other end. And when you do that so many times, you spring another leak, sometimes another. I've gone up to 7 leaks before. Going over there fixing one of those little 5-minute problems, ended up spending 2 hours fixing 6 more leaks after that. So those are very unpopular problems. They're common problems, but very unpopular. But you'll have stuff just raining down from the ceiling and all over the machines, all over people. It ain't so much fun when you're having to deal with it, but I guess I can laugh at it right this second. Right inside of there is where the spin finish pump is, and I went back and took another video of that I'll get back to in a minute. But that's where the spin finish pump is, that pumps the spin finish from that tank I showed you, not the tote, but the tank where I was showing you where the line breaks a lot of times, and it pumps it up to the thing I showed you with the little pigtails. That it pumps it up, and it comes out of these jets right here. It comes through these hoses and then comes out of these jets, and it adds spin finish to the material. Okay, there's the spin finish pumps. That's that cabinet that I just showed you. If you take the door off, that's what it looks like. It's a motor attached to a pump. The pump pumps it up through those 4 lines and on up through there. This is the incoming line, so it goes down into a filter. And I've seen that spin finish eat a hole through that filter before. And then it pumps it out into each side. But that's some strong stuff to eat a hole through a filter like that. Okay, this is just a smaller version of an extruder. This right here is one of our little lab lines where we run samples on to send to customers. So I don't have to work on this thing a lot. I don't mind working on it because it's easy to work on, but everything's easy to get to. It's right there. But anyway, this is just to give you an idea. This is an extruder barrel, and I'm going to take one of these covers off, one of these insulation covers off, and show you what a heater looks like that goes around it. That's what it looks like. That's the wire going into the heater. That's the actual band heater. Okay, and I think next, moving on to staples. This is a staple side, and I started in the back. This is right here. This is called anastat, short for anti-static, and it's essentially pretty much like spin finish. It just keeps, if you don't have it, the material will get a lot of static buildup, and it'll stick to the rollers and get a lot of reps. But we have this tub back here. I don't think I'll spend too much time on this. I think I'll show you later where it comes out. But anyway, that's a submergible pump that just pumps it out into the heads. These are the die heads. I had to switch off because I wanted to show you the dosing unit. If you remember the dosing unit from before, where it had the pigment and all of that, there was a little bin that had pigment in it, and then one that had stabilizer in it, and then the polymer coming in, and the throat. Now this is a much bigger scale. Staple's a lot bigger than filament, but that's the thing with the flap. That's where the polymer empties into. The throat is underneath the floor, but it goes through the dosing unit right here, and this dosing unit has 8 bins because sometimes you add a lot more color to the staple fiber. So each one of these things right here that we're staring at is a bin that you can add different colored pigment to achieve the color you want. Inside there, that thing right there that's moving, that's called a bendicator, and that's just to if it starts running out of pigment, that thing will start turning, and when it's turning, it generates a buzzer. It generates power to a buzzer that goes off to let you know that it's that it's running low on pigment. Now that's going into the floor, into the throat. This is just an extended view of that. Okay, there's the extruder. Extruder's much bigger. I'm having a time squeezing in there. I should have picked a better route, but that's a much bigger extruder motor. A much bigger extruder. Those right there. This one's so big it has cooling fans. Those cooling fans are when the temperature gets a little too hot. They'll turn on and they'll blow off a little steam. They'll dissipate some of that heat. So it doesn't overheat, catch on fire. But that's the throat right there. Took me a minute to get in there. That's the sensor right there that lets the throat know, that tells the dosing unit when the throat's empty, so it can start pouring it back in there, so it doesn't run out of polymer. All that polymer goes through here. It's going to take me a second to get out of that other end too. Okay. Goes through there. There's a filter. Then we have to change those filters. I won't even get into that. Okay, moving back around to the back end, and we'll go from the back to the front and show you it coming out, the fiber coming out through the plates. Not packs this time, but plates. And that's the meter pump. If you remember me showing you the meter pump earlier, which it goes through the extruder and through the feed tube, and then it distributes it to the meter pumps, which are set to a certain speed to regulate how much comes out of the heads according to whatever denier that they want to run. Go around the other side and get a better look at it. Alright, there it is coming out. You see all those little holes. Those are cooling air hoses, because as soon as they come out of those holes, they're pretty hot. So there's cooling air that goes to them, or what's called quench air on the filament side, and it's just enough to harden them up a little bit. It's not really cold. It's not, it's not really cold. It's just a little bit. It's just cool, and it hardens it up a little bit so the heads don't fall. I mean, if they're too hot and they're still melting when they're going up, vertically, then they're going to fall down. So this hardens them up just a little bit. Okay, so they go up around that roller. I think I'm going to show you where that anestat comes out here in a minute. Right there it is. That's the tub. That anestat pumps into those little trays. Excuse me. And the roller just kisses it. It gets the anestat on the roller, and then the material rubs up against it, and it goes on down the line. There's 8 heads on that line. Then it goes into these rollers. These are called haul-off rollers. And they're meant to keep it hot. They keep the material hot. They kind of stretch it out a little bit. Keep tension on it. You got haul-off 1, that's 7 rollers. You got haul-off 2, that's another 7 rollers. They get a little bit faster. Then this is an oven. Just keeps it hot while it moves to haul-off 3. Because haul-off 3 is where it really speeds up. That's Celsius. But haul-off 3, you see how much faster that's running. Haul-off 3 is meant to really stretch out the material. See how slow that's running and how fast that's running. Because those rollers stretch it out. It goes through another oven, and then you get to the relax roller, haul-off 4. Those are running faster, but they're not. They're a little bit slower than haul-off 3, and that's just to let it relax a little bit. Not much slower, but a little bit. Then it goes through a steam oven, and then through a crimper, which does exactly what its name says. It crimps it. Comes out of there hot as hell. That's called a tub sensor, and that tub sensor just once it gets below that tub sensor, or above that tub sensor, I mean, if it's working, then it just tells the cutter wheel, which you'll see in a minute, it tells the cutter wheel to go ahead and turn back on. If it gets below that cutter wheel, then there's nothing. I mean, if it gets below that tub sensor and there's nothing blocking that tub sensor, that makes it think the tub is empty, and the cutter wheel will stop, because it don't want to pull it if there's not anything in there to pull. So there's the cutter wheel. Okay, but I'm going to go through it right here. That's just a series of rollers. That's those rollers right there. That's spin finish for this. These have the filament side just has spin finish. These have anestat at the beginning and spin finish at the end. So that's what those rollers are. That tank, the little tub right there, that little tray is full of spin finish. So then it goes into the cutter wheel. I think I go holler at my buddy Oz here. Well, I paused it. So I'm going to open the door on this cutter wheel. Once you open that door, it automatically stops it. And that's the cutter wheel right there. And it has blades all through it. And it just chops up that fiber. And we'll see that. I'll show you an example. But this is one of the blades, and it'll shave you off. It'll shave your finger off if you're not careful. But anyway, you insert them in there. It goes down through that ductwork. I'm going to close the door and turn it back on and get a handful of it so you can see what it looks like when it comes out. That's it. Then it just goes through that ductwork, and on to the baler. And we're at the bottleneck right now. We're about to wrap things up. It's going to be an hour-long video. My God. I'm going to pause it while I walk. Sorry about this. Okay, we're up on the baler now. It comes into the baler. This is the fiber dropping down into the baler. Looks like somebody taking a dump. Now, I'm trying to make this this loader come forward. There's this thing called a loader, and it comes through and pushes that material forward. There it goes. Hard to see, but there it is. Anyway, it pushes it forward into something called a pre-pressing box. I'm going to go back downstairs. There's the pre-pressing box. The trample pushes it down. I don't know why this is so jumpy now. Let me pause it. It pushes it down into that pre-pressing box, and then this is called a turntable. Once that pre-pressing box gets so much in it, a buzzer goes off. It's pressure based, and this thing lifts up and it turns around, and it puts that box over here and vice versa. That one's empty. So it puts that box over here, and then what's called a main ram comes down and jams all that fiber up inside there, just packs it all down. And then I'm going to move on to that. We'll see how that. Well, we're not going to see it turn, but yeah, I'm explaining it now like I wasn't going to explain it on the video. Stupid. There's a box going down that's empty. Okay, so here's a bale that's been compressed, and that's what all that fiber looks like. And I'll show you another one here in a second. There's what a bale looks like. That's okay. So this is I think I'm hoping I can make this the last one, but this is the bale coming off of the baler. Okay, the ram picks it up. The ram lifts up. It's already been bagged. And this is the dolly. Have to work on these dollies every now and then. And they can chew up a lot of time. But it comes and picks up the bale, puts it on the line. Off you go. That comes back. Okay, so here comes that same bale down the line. Of course, my media player wants to play up every time I have to pause the thing. But anyway, it goes through a turntable. It comes down here. They take it off, carry it to the warehouse. I don't think there's anything really worth going over beyond this. The video is right now 59 minutes and 10 seconds, and I didn't plan on it being that long, but anyway, that's how it works here. All right, I'm going to keep it under an hour, so I'll get off here now.